This What's Working with Cam Marston podcast is brought to you by Stella Artois Beer.
What's Working with Cam Marston is brought to you by Stella Artois Beer. Stella Artois is a perfect beer for celebration. Nothing caps off a big sale, hitting your incentive goals, or a profitable quarter like a round of Stellas. Brewed first in 1708 as a special Christmas brew, today Stella is a gift for everyone to enjoy year-round. Stella Artois. Find it wherever fine beer is sold.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is the show designed to bring you the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace trends shaping the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace around you. I find the guests that can talk intelligently on the trends, and hopefully there's something you hear that you can apply immediately to your business. Not a lot of time for a preamble today, folks. We got a lot of great content in this upcoming show, and I don't want to drag my feet any longer. The focus is financial services and financial planning and retirement planning, and my guests today are my wonderful friends, Jamey Sandifer and Marc Salyers with Sandifer Wealth Management. We'll get into our conversation with them when we come back from break. You're going to be very interested in the content that they've brought together today about the financial services business and how it's changing and what you need to know to be ready for your own retirement. We'll be back after this break with Jamey Sandifer and Marc Salyers. You're listening to What's Working.
Hi, I'm David Nelson, brewmaster and owner of Braided River Brewing in downtown Mobile. We make drinkable, flavorful craft beer perfect for life on the Gulf Coast. So pick up one of our six-packs before your next adventure, or stop by our tap room for a relaxing afternoon with friends. Follow us on social media for the latest beer releases and events, and ask for a Braided River at your favorite bars and restaurants. Thanks for your support. We look forward to sharing our beers with you.
Jamey Sandifer and Marc Salyers work together at Sandifer Wealth Management. We're in the studio today talking about the business of financial services. They've been long friends of mine, great allies of mine, and I'm a great ally of them. We're going to talk today a little bit about the business, what makes their business. We're going to look at the marketplace. We're going to talk about what a fiduciary means. Folks, if this is something that I think should rise high on your radar as you're looking at your own future, let's get started with the story. Jamey, how did you begin the business? It's called Sandifer Wealth Management. It's your name. Where did it start?
Thanks, Cam. That's a very good question. When I grew up, I was one of five children, and I would say money was a little scarce in our household, and so I was sort of attracted to finance and studied finance at the University of Alabama and graduated in 1975. So that was good fortune up to that point, but the timing was bad because the stock market had just dropped about 50% the year I graduated, and in addition, we had a very deep recession, 9% unemployment, and so what I did was continued, like most people do when they can't get a job, continue going to school and working there at the university. And around 1980, I started seeking out opportunities in Mobile. And I found a gentleman who was establishing his own investment firm, had been with E.F. Hutton for years, and he decided to take me on. And that was the genesis of how we sort of got into this industry and how we got to where we are today.
Oh, quick follow-up in that question, Jamey. What did he see with you? What did the guy with E.F. Hutton see in you that made him want to choose you as a partner, as a subordinate or whatever it was?
Well, I guess you would have to ask him that, but I think the main thing was for several months we had a weekly phone call. I was actually still in Tuscaloosa. He was here. And I think after a couple of months, and his wife realizing I called on time every Sunday night at the exact time I was supposed to, that she said, I think you better hire that guy. So persistency may be part of the answer.
That's a great story. Marc, tell me about yourself. How did you get paired up with Jamey, and what's your background?
Well, it's a little different than most, so I'll try to make a long story a little longer. I played basketball growing up, blessed enough to get a scholarship at Sanford University in Birmingham, Alabama, small Division I school there. Did well there and had an opportunity to play professional for a little over a decade in Europe. And when I got done with basketball, the goal was always, hey, just get right into coaching. It's a natural fit. It was something I was good at, something that I love to do. 1 year coaching at Sanford University for their men's basketball team let me know that that's not what I wanted to do. And blessed enough to meet a guy through Sanford University that worked at Morgan Stanley, wanted me to get in the business, and I decided to, hey, let's give it a shot. Something I was always interested in, had to do with my own money. It was something I thought I could really add value to other people as well. Went to work for Morgan Stanley, left there to start an ETF company, actually launched the first ETF in the state of Alabama.
All right, let's pause to define that. Tell everybody what an ETF is.
An ETF is an exchange-traded fund. It's a vehicle similar to a mutual fund. It just traded a little different and a little different structure.
So you began something for the first time in the state of Alabama. Continue on.
So we launched the first ETF in the state of Alabama. In the process of marketing that ETF and meeting other advisors, I met Jamey, and we hit it off. And I really liked the way that he built his company, the culture of the company, the structure of the company. And I knew it's something. At some point, I always wanted to get back on the individual and on the personal side of the business, and that was just a great opportunity.
Yeah, and how long have you two been together since then?
Met Jamey in 2016, and we ended up officially working together at the end of that year, beginning of 2017.
Oh, it happened fairly quick then.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me, there's somebody listening going, all right, wealth services, what exactly is that? Jamey, define exactly what it is that you do for your clients.
Well, that's a good question, because I think a lot of people, when they see financial services, financial advisor, or wealth management, they just think that are portfolio managers. In other words, or somebody's selling them Apple stock, or they're selling them a group of bonds to invest in. And that is part of what we do. As a matter of fact, we do not farm out our portfolio management. Marc and I are CFPs, but we're also the portfolio managers. Well, the difference being is we don't stop with the investments. We continue on to whatever financial question, need, whatever that client has. If they say, look, I've got a grandchild, I want to help them, but I don't want to enable them, what do I do? We start trying to solve their financial problems, no matter what that is. It doesn't have to do with just investments. Matter of fact, I think Marc had an interesting story the other day about one of our clients. The lady that needed some help with her technology. What was that, Marc?
Yeah, I mean, you hear people in our business always talking about, hey, we're client first. We're give a high level of personal service, et cetera, et cetera. But, really defining what that means is different for every firm. And with our firm, great example I was telling Jamey is last week, a widow that we worked with, Jamey, I think she's been a client of yours for 10, 15 years maybe. Yeah. She came in last week because she couldn't get the email on her iPhone to work. And we spent an hour with her setting up her 2 email addresses, getting her app worked out, getting it all worked. It has nothing to do with finances, has nothing to do with her portfolio, but it's just things like that our clients, I think it says more about the way that they view us than it is for the service that we're providing. I mean, it's just that's how our clients see us, and that's kind of the level of personal attention we give them.
So you're a help desk for my parents particularly, so they don't have to call me and say, I can't get the TV to turn on, or the Apple TV is not working anymore. I can now send them to your offices to say, you know what, I don't know how to do that either, but I know who does, Mom and Dad. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what I'm hoping you're telling me?
I mean, that's not our primary focus by any means, but at the same time, I mean, we have that type of relationship with our clients. If they needed that service and they needed us to help them with something, it's not anything we would ever hesitate to do.
I know when I first met you guys, you were so proud, I guess is the word, of your family feel, of the way you treat your clients and the way you treat one another in the workplace. And since I've gotten to know you, I can vouch for that. It's really special. There are a lot of people out there that say that, but I know after my experience with you guys that it really is something very strong. Tell me about your client. Who is he or she? What is the problem or the series of problems you're solving for them? Marc, I'll let you answer that one.
Well, I'll say our average client is the guy that has around $1 million of investable assets, or he may have a little less because his 401k is a little heavy and he's working and he's 5 years away from retirement. He's trying to plan to that stage. So that's kind of the average client that we meet and bring on and help with. Now, obviously, we've had clients that are 30 years into retirement, and we like those and we appreciate those clients just the same. But that's probably kind of our sweet spot, is that $1 to $6 million guy that's approaching retirement, trying to figure out where that paycheck's going to come when he does walk away from his work, and just make sure that he is okay to walk away from his work and go from working to work optional.
What I read in financial services magazines, this is a part of my business that I kind of interact with from time to time, is that people are always shocked about what it's really going to cost to retire. And is this something this is a conversation that you have, Jamey, with your clients, and they go, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought this, or are they usually okay with that? Tell me about their reaction when they think about retirement and the dollars that it's going to take.
Well, I think a lot of clients don't have that answer. And as Marc pointed out, one question which we should be asking is, when should a potential client, come to us? And of course, a lot of people can't start at age 25 or 30 because they're getting their family started, they're paying their mortgages, they're paying off school loans. At the same time, trying to put money in a college plan for their children. So there's not a lot of excess capital in those ages. Then when they reach around 40 to 45, they start, getting things in order. They start feeling a little bit of breathing room, financially speaking. And then when they get around 50, there's a saying in our business: if you want to have a serious conversation about retirement, only talk to people 50 and older, because below that they can't think that far ahead. Mm-hmm. So around 50 or 55 is really when we recommend people get out there and start getting with a wealth management person like ourselves. There's a lot of them in Mobile and Baldwin County, and get with them and start doing a financial X-ray. Okay, this is what I've cobbled together. This is what I have. How am I doing? And what if I wanted to retire, say, at 62 or 65, or I love my job, I plan on working till 75, whatever their thoughts and goals are. So when they do that, what Marc and I do, again, as certified financial planners, we look at the whole picture. So it's a holistic type of a solution. So we're not just looking at the dollars and cents. We're looking at the makeup of the family unit. Tell us about your parents. They may be the sandwich generation. Okay, hey, I'm trying to save for my family. By the same token, I have to help my mom out because she's having to get extra health care or go into the nursing home or something of that nature. So we approach all those subjects and all the concerns that they have. So I think that's where wealth management comes in versus just investment management.
Marc, you're going to say something.
No, I just wanted to just bring up and kind of touch on more than what he said. I mean, not to go down a rabbit hole, but just how our industry has shifted from maybe the old days of the stockbrokers till now is the importance of an actual financial plan. I'm amazed at how many people don't understand or haven't really went down that path in their own lives, that it's so much more impactful to have a financial plan. I know that I need this investment, and this portfolio all together to reach all my goals, to reach what I'm trying to get to, versus, hey, let's just throw spaghetti at the wall and hope it sticks. I want to buy $30,000 of BP or some other example of a stock, without knowing, does that fit my plan? Is that the risk I need to take? Is that how much return I need to seek, et cetera, et cetera?
I have a person that I know quite well, member of my family, who equates, and I've had to work with him on this to equate that you're not stock pickers. And his question is always kind of like a tarot card reader or something like that. If they can predict the future, why aren't they all wealthy? What do they need my money for? Why do these stock pickers who are so brilliant, why do they need my money? And I have to say, hey, that's not what they do. You need to eliminate that term from your head, because that perhaps was something back in the day, but that's not what a wealth manager does. Is this a conversation that you guys continue to have, or is the wealth management pretty much accepted these days? Jamey?
Well, it is. I think a lot of people are seeing the benefits of using of actually building portfolios. Now, I can go out and I can say, okay, I bought Bitcoin last year, or I bought Tesla 3 years ago, but that's not a portfolio. A portfolio is actually taking many different parts, mixing them together, and then looking and seeing, are they working in conjunction with each other? Are they working against each other? Many people come to us and they'll say, hey, here's my statements. I have an account somewhere. And we'll look at it and we'll say, okay, you've got 30 different investments, but guess what? They're all the same investment. Translated, they're all going to move in the same direction at the same time. That's not diversification. And so that's a more sophisticated way of planning that future, is to create that portfolio, and they're not all the same.
Yeah.
You have some for, a 70-year-old retiree or widow, and then you have some for a 40-year-old.
Yeah. When we come back from break, I want to talk about the value of the designation of the CFP. It's something that I've learned recently, and there's some rigor in achieving this thing, and it's something that I think the listeners should know the value of this designation. So we'll pick that up when we get back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston in the studio today with Jamey Sandifer, Marc Salyers with Sandifer Wealth Management. We'll be right back.
I'm Paul Lewis, General Manager of Roy Lewis Construction. Many of our commercial buildings you drive by daily on both sides of the bay are the fruits of our client relationship since our beginning in the early 80s. It is our mission to bring value to our clients, from retrofits to ground-up construction and everything in between. We have more advocates than any of our competitors who have been in business twice as long. Same with repeat business, same with referrals. Find us online at roylewisconstruction.com, and let's talk about your next commercial project.
We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. In the studio today, Jamey Sandifer, Marc Salyers, Sandifer Wealth Management. In my traditional business, I interacted a lot with financial services and have written a book, in fact, called The Gen Savvy Financial Advisor, which needs to be updated post-pandemic because I'm confident so much of that has changed. But it's been a part of my work, and I have learned to value the designation of the Certified Financial Planner, the CFP. And I know that anybody that I would want a relationship with in the financial services industry needs to have the CFP designation. Jamey, tell the listeners a little bit about the designation and the rigor behind it.
Well, I have a little bit of history there, because when I started in that business, in 1980, there was no CFP designation, so I guess I'm dating myself. Around 1985, the College for Financial Planning was formed, and they created a 2-year program and a series of 8 different tests that you had to pass to study things like estates, taxes, investments, insurance, financial planning, college planning, retirement planning. And so that was the genesis of the CFP designation. I do hold that designation. Marc does as well. And so when we look at someone's situation, we're not the attorney, we're not the CPA, but we know enough to understand what we can, where we can help in communicating with their other advisors to give them the best result. And that's where that CFP training comes in.
Yeah. How many people ask you about it? I suspect that few do.
Well, it's amazing that in the last couple of years, the clients or the investors out there have come to know that designation. They will search the internet for CFPs. So a lot of the people that have been coming to us in the last couple of years are intentionally looking for a CFP. You would think there'd be one on every corner. But in reality, I think in the Mobile-Baldwin County area, less than 15% of the people in the financial services business are actually certified financial planners.
And does it allow you to charge more because of that? Is that something that you achieved this designation for?
No, it doesn't allow you to charge anything more.
It does. So, but putting that behind your name does not say, because I've got this by my name, I'm going to raise my rates or anything like that.
No.
No. All right. Well, I've seen the CFP designation advertised or promoted in TV commercials, that if you want this, you need to find somebody with this designation. There's somebody out there supporting you a great deal. And I think it's a prudent move. As I said a moment ago, I'm a big fan of the designation. I've learned the rigors behind it. Let me ask a specific question, Marc, that comes up in my peer group these days. And I actually had a broadcast on this not long ago. And that is, and I'll give you a little bit of sense of my story, and then I'm going to add some to it to see what your reaction would be. I'm in my early 50s, and we've got 4 kids at home. Actually, I'm used to saying that. We've got 3 kids at home. One is now a freshman in college. And money's tight. Money's tight. I have parents who are getting older. There's no way to deny that, and time moves on. And it is a difficult life stage that I and many of my peers in this life stage are going through. And my reaction may be, sitting down with somebody to talk to me about wealth right now is a futile exercise, because there ain't nothing that looks like wealth going on in my household right now. What it looks like is chaos and stress. So if I were to come to you and say, hey, you don't want me as a client, you don't even want to spend an hour with me, because the wheels are falling off at any given moment. I can make something up here. Yet your reaction is going to be what? What are you going to tell somebody like me?
Well, I'd start by saying that's probably the best time to seek out a financial planner and start to get on track and get on the road to achieving that goal. Because you can never make up starting early. You can't make up for that. The earlier you start, the better you get on track. The quicker hey, if I continue to do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to reach this point in my life. That's the most valuable thing. Obviously, the earlier you start, the better, period.
No, so you're going to sit down and say, yeah, you ain't got nothing to put in right now, but a plan is still what you need.
No question.
You're self-employed, Cam. A lot of our clients, our potential clients, are not self-employed. So let's say they're funding a 401k. And that money gets taken out prior to their paycheck hitting their bank account. Okay, so they are actually saving for the future. Now, then the question comes is, okay, how are you investing that 401k? And most people will say, I really don't know. They gave me a list of stuff and I just picked something, So we can help people at that space, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get their investments working for them, so that one day they can quit working and then the investments will take care of them the rest of their lives. So we can address debt. We can address how much interest they're paying. So let's say they have credit cards, they have a mortgage, they have a second mortgage or a home equity line. We can look at those things with them. And then we can also look at that, the big gorilla in the room, college cost. Mm-hmm. You hear all these numbers, about what college is going to cost. Well, there's a lot of ways to skin that college cat. Okay.
I love that expression. There's a lot of ways to skin that college cat. I'm going to steal that. I love the way that rolls.
I'll charge you for it. But, but really, and so I think it is daunting. And so when someone comes, just like if you go to any counselor, you walk away feeling like, I think I'm doing better than I thought I was. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to know that until you actually come and sit down with someone like, a planner like ourselves.
And
go ahead, Marc.
Well, just to add to that, he mentioned the 401k, and a lot of people don't. For them, that 401k, it's something in the future. It's not money that they have access to now. It's some retirement that I'll worry about 20 years from today. who cares what's going on with that? But I read just about a week or so ago, and don't quote me on the actual statistic, but a 50-year-old that's been investing and contributing and maxing out his 401k for the past 20 years, of that account balance, over half of it is what that contribution has earned.
Oh, wow.
Versus what they've actually contributed. So that being said, how they're invested, how it's structured, and what investments they're choosing in that 401k account is obviously going to be very important to their financial future and how the retirement's going to go. When you speak to young people or clients, don't have to be young people, and they say, I'm kind of taking care of this myself. I got my retirement. I got my 401k. I know how to allocate the funds within my 401k so that I pick my risk. Do you have great confidence that people that manage themselves can do it well? Because there's kind of a do-it-yourself, learn-yourself attitude, particularly in the younger generation today, of saying, I got this covered. I'll take care of it. I don't need to hire anybody to do this. Marc, what is your reaction to that? Well, one, I think it's great. The more people that want to get involved, the more people that want to learn, to educate themselves on how to do it themselves or try to do it themselves, the better. Because the more they know, the easier my job is, and the easier the communication and the back and forth is. I will say that when you're trying to do it yourself, take it someone like myself who had a career in professional basketball, had a lot of money at a young age that I had to take care of, that I was ill-equipped to do so. Recovering from mistakes is going to be your biggest hurdle, and it's almost impossible to do. So to avoid those big mistakes that you make can be paramount in reaching your goal. Give me an example of what one of these big mistakes could be. This is very curious. Well, you take the financial crisis. So most people's recent memory of our generation can remember, if you had any money in the stock market or in real estate during 08, 09, I woke up as a professional basketball player. All my money was in the stock market and South Florida real estate. Really? So I tried to retire in 2009 in January. You're the poster child for what we're talking about. I am. Yeah. And so, I woke up not being on top of my finances as good as I should, probably, as far as education-wise. I had all the hot shots that did it for me. I try to retire. I look at my account balance. It's about 60% of what I thought it was supposed to be. Oh, my goodness. That being said, I didn't retire in 2009, and I kept playing because I knew personally that as long as I didn't have to sell, the market eventually would come back, and I could get to a point where I could retire and from financial play, not retire totally, obviously. So at that point, you took a 2008, there's people that, they saw that portfolio value. They were the do-it-yourself guys, and they lost half their money in a year. So what do? I got to sell. I can't lose anymore. We have to sell. I have to get out. I can't keep going down. And so they get out, and some of them are still waiting to get back in. And that's the financial mistake that I'm talking about that is tough to recover from. That's amazing. And you speak from experience. Jamey, did you have people go through something similar 2007, 8, 9?
Of course. As a matter of fact, starting in 1980, if you recall, interest rates were 18 to 20%. Yeah. Inflation was running, 18% in 1980. So very tough time to sort of go into this industry. Then we had a really nice run up to 87. We had the Black Monday, October 19th. That gave a lot of people pause and questioned whether they should bail out. And then we had another good run until the tech bubble burst in 1999. That ran a lot of people out of the market. That was a slower event. It took about 3 years for the market to really flush out all that excess value that had been created with the tech bubble. And then we're off to the races again until about 2008 with the financial crisis. So we've had many opportunities, but as one of my long-term clients, she retired, I think, in 2000, she told me this past year when the virus hit, she said, "Hey, we've been through this before. I'm not worried."
Music to your ears.
Exactly.
You trained her well.
I tried.
And you set her up for success. That's great. When we come back, let's talk about the difference in savings and investing. I think there's something there. As well as I'm wondering if you guys can come up with 5 questions that anybody listening should ask themselves that would help them realize I'm set, I know enough, or maybe I could use some help. Is there a way that we can kind of cobble through what these questions could be? Sure, absolutely. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. We'll be back in just a minute with Jamey Sandifer and Marc Salyers with Sandifer Wealth Management.
I'm David Nelson, brewmaster and owner of Braided River Brewing. We want beer that goes along no matter where the adventure takes us and that doesn't make us choose between great beer and drinkability. We're drawn to the Delta and united by beer because to us, the best way to celebrate the Delta is to slow down and savor the moments and the beer together. Come visit our tap room in downtown Mobile and ask for us at your favorite bar or restaurant. Visit online at braidedriverbrewing.com.
Hey, this is Cam. Thanks for listening, and I hope you're really enjoying the podcast. Do me a favor and search for Cam Marston on your social media outlets and like us or follow us or whatever is the right thing to do. Also, if you know others who'd benefit from the podcast, please forward it on to them and encourage them to listen. If you're so inclined, we'd love your rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Those ratings matter. Finally, don't be a stranger. Email me with your comments, your feedback, your thoughts, your show ideas, whatever. Cam, C-A-M, at cammarston.com. I'd love to hear from you. Again, thank you very much for listening. Now, back to the show. We're back. In the studio today, Jamey Sandifer, Marc Salyers, Sandifer Wealth Management, longtime friends of mine, fans of the show. I'm grateful for their support. Prior to the break, we were talking about the difference in saving versus investing. Jamey, why don't you tell us a little bit what those distinctions are?
Well, I think the biggest difference is when you're saving, typically you're putting money into an account at a financial institution. They are turning around, paying you some type of interest, but they're the ones really making money on that money. They're turning around and loaning it back to you to buy a car at 6% or loaning it back to you to buy a home. And so savers basically are just loaners. You're loaning that money to someone else. Investing is where you actually take direct ownership via, most of the time, common stock into corporations, both domestic and foreign. And as that corporation grows, we have a saying that wealth is created from the long-term ownership of a growing business. So when you have equity in that corporation, you may only have a few shares or maybe a handful of dollars in that investment. But when it grows, you benefit the same percentage as Warren Buffett does. If he owns a lot more shares, he just happens to make more money. But you get the same percentage growth. So having equity turns you into an investor. What you have to realize is when you have that, you also take on the risk. And that's the crux of the first thing that Marc and I do when we visit with our clients is we talk about risk. If you want to coin a phrase that we talk about around our office all the time is risk management. So that goes into every decision we make. And I think that's the challenge of being an investor is living alongside that risk that you have to embrace, but also try to control it as much as possible.
One of the terms that I hear bandied around in financial services is fiduciary. What is that?
Well, a fiduciary basically says that you have to put your client's interest first. That's the fiduciary rule. And to give you an example, I could have a financial advisor, and I could have a couple of different accounts with him. And on one account, he could say, look, I'm going to charge you a flat fee. I don't get compensated in any other form or fashion. Now, technically, he can be a fiduciary on that account. But on the other hand, the other account, he may say, hey, look, I think you should buy this or buy that. And there's some type of compensation. Usually they call it a commission. And so on that account, he's not a fiduciary because he doesn't have to put your best interest first. So years ago, we decided that we felt like it was very important to just be a fiduciary on all accounts all the time.
This is Sandifer Wealth Management decided that.
That's correct. And so there is no, in the fiduciary world, in our world, and the Certified Financial Planning College also requires you to act as a fiduciary. And so in our world, the only way we benefit is if our clients' accounts grow. We do not get a percentage of their profit, but as their accounts grow, our business grows.
And there's not a commission on anything you put them in. Is that correct?
That's correct. The only compensation we're allowed to receive is the compensation the client pays us directly.
And it keeps you sleeping well at night.
Well, I like to think so. When there's no conflict of interest, I feel like we can produce a better solution.
Yeah. Interesting. That's good. So prior to the break, we were also talking about, and you mentioned this just a moment ago, Jamey, risk. What is the client's appetite for risk? We talked a little bit about the 5 questions that people need to consider as they're listening, they're examining their own, future, their own background as well, I guess. Let's talk about those 5 questions, and perhaps one of them has something to do with risk. Marc, let's get us started.
Well, before we get into the 5 questions, can I say one more thing about the risk?
Yes, go on.
It's just that, people associate the stock market or some type of investment with mutual fund, et cetera, with risk. Well, there's also a big risk with just leaving that cash in the bank. I mean, we've been spoiled with very low inflation here in the past 20 years, but that value of that dollar, the purchasing power of that dollar that you're losing every year it's in the bank is also a big risk that I think a lot of people need to consider. That's a good piece of advice. That you may feel good seeing that balance in the bank, but in truth, it's losing value the longer it sits there. Every single year. Interesting. So you're not against having a savings account. You're against someone creating a retirement account as a savings account. That's right. Good distinction there. All right, 5 questions. What you got? So number 1 is basically, are you living within your means? Do you spend less than you earned? If you do, we can get into the details of the benefit of that later. Well, wait a minute. Let's pause there. Do you live within your means? What is your idea on how many people out there do live within their means versus don't? Do you have any percentages at the forefront of your mind? What's your best guess? You've been in the business long enough. I don't guess. It's not as many people as it should. Yeah. I'm going to say that. I think, we can look, especially here in America, credit card balances, mortgage payments, car payments, keeping up with the Joneses is obviously very real and very prevalent. But those few families that are disciplined enough to, hey, let's spend less than we earn, or at least in a controllable manner, then obviously they're the ones that are going to benefit from that wealth creation. That are on the track to create wealth. How many people are out there, do you think, budget each month? Very, very few. Yeah. Very few. I probably don't budget as much as I have as far as writing down every single thing you spend. It's just tough to do. But there are things, nowadays, especially living with plastic and credit cards and all these iPhone apps. I mean, my American Express budget is for me. It tells me exactly how much I spend in dining and entertainment and this and then that. So, but it doesn't prevent you from spending either, does it? Well, that's where discipline comes in. That's right. That's right. Yeah, Jamey.
Well, I think all of us, or a lot of us, are constantly trying to lose weight. And I just read yesterday that if you document something, you will have a better success at what you're trying to accomplish. So if you're measuring that on a routine basis and you're looking at your spending, it helps you identify, for example, you know what, I've noticed the last 3 months we've been doing this, and we don't really have to do that. But if you're not looking at it at all, then it just sort of gets built into the monthly expenses, and you lose control. So really documenting your expenses is coming up with we call it a spending plan instead of a budget. Mm-hmm. It's just, I have this amount of money coming in, and this is how our family is going to spend our money. Yeah. I read something similar. Write down what you're eating and look at it on a regular basis, and you'll be surprised at what you're eating and likely disgusted with yourself. And I have tried it, and they are exactly right. And I stopped. Question 2, Marc. It's a big one, and it's one we touched on earlier about young people in their 401k. Is do you know how much risk is in your 401k account? And when I mean risk is, so when we pick investments and we build a portfolio out, what we want to do is we want to get as much bang for our buck. So it's okay to take risk, but I want to be compensated for that risk with the amount of return. A lot of people's investments and the way they built their portfolio inside their 401k, maybe it's taken
way too much risk for the amount of possible return that they could benefit from. And in getting that under control and having that adjusted is something that could really benefit them.
So when you have a client that comes to you that has a 401k that's still in the workplace, that's something you will do, is help them look at this 401k and say, hey, let's change the risk profile here.
Oh, most definitely. It's something we do on a regular basis, and it's very important. It gets overlooked a lot.
Though you may not get paid on what's in their 401k, it's part of your CFP responsibilities?
That's right. So many times we're not paid at all on it. We're just given advice based on a relationship we have with that person.
Sure.
In other places. Other times they have what that's called, without getting too much in the weeds, there's self-directed brokerage accounts. There's ways through technology that we've invested in at Sandifer Wealth Management that allows us to manage that 401k for them.
Oh.
And hands-on, instead of, hey, we have 12 mutual funds to choose from, pick one. It allows us to build out a portfolio that really matches their needs and the amount of risk that they're willing to take, and kind of gets them to that go a little quicker that way.
Question 3.
So the third question is, what are your expectations for retirement as far as how early are you going to retire, how much are you going to spend? People automatically assume that their spending is going to get cut really drastically during retirement. All their bills are going to be paid, their house payment, What you find is you have a lot of time to do a lot of things, and you end up spending a lot of money in retirement, and just banking on that is really important.
I remember seeing something about the number of baby boomers who expected their house note to be paid when they entered retirement, but were woefully incorrect about that. Marc?
Well, a lot of people, they get a new house when they get in retirement. So their kids are gone. They want to retire. They want to retire down to Florida, or they want to move to another part of town, or they say they want to quote unquote downsize, but that smaller house is in a much nicer neighborhood. And they may take on another note and another mortgage at that time that they may not, be accounting for.
Jamey?
Well, this is where, again, the wealth management aspect comes in, because every client's different. One size fits one is what we say. And so basically, when you're talking about retirement, sometimes relocation comes into play. So we see this all the time, where a couple lives here, say the husband dies, the widow's here, but her children live in Arkansas. And eventually what we're seeing is that person has to relocate to Arkansas to be close to the children. And so those are the kind of things you can't necessarily plan for. Mm-hmm. But when we generate a long-term plan for the client, what we're trying to do is discuss those possibilities, build those into the plan. If they don't happen, that's great. If they do happen, we're ready for it.
No surprises.
Correct.
All right. I'm watching my time here. I want to make sure we get them all in. I think we're on question 4, Marc.
That's right. And that's just life expectancy, just longevity planning, and whether that be, past medical history, the medical history of your family, or just the realization that, hey, people are living longer and they're going to continue to do so. So nowadays, we're living, 15, 20 years longer, but people still want to retire at the same date that their grandparents did.
Yeah.
Which is fine, which is great, as long as they've built that wealth and been on that plan to do so. But that's a lot more years that you're going to have to budget for collecting a check when you're not working, and that money's going to have to be stretched out a lot farther than some people think.
Living 30 years after your retirement is not unreasonable anymore.
Oh, no, I'd say that's the norm.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? So I think about where I was 30 years ago and how old I was 30 years ago, and think that was a long time ago. There's a potential that I could live that long in retirement. Will the money hold out? Jamey?
When it really gets your attention is if, let's say, you start your career, say, around age 30, you retire at 60, so you've worked for 30 years, and then you live to 90. So basically, what we're getting into, because of better health care and with people taking care of themselves better, we are starting to see people actually retired longer than they worked, which puts a lot of pressure on their savings and their investments.
No kidding. No kidding. All right, question 5. This is very interesting.
Yeah, and that's just leave something to your children. What are you going to, not only how much do you want to provide for your kids after you're gone, as far as a bequest or some type of inheritance, but how you're going to do that can drastically change how much that kid actually gets.
Mm-hmm. I remember hearing in my household, the only inheritance you're going to get is a work ethic. And I thought, well, I'm going to try to not get that?
Well, what we're also running into a lot is, so let's say we have a couple 70, 75, they've done a great job, and they want to start, they say, okay, I can leave my children this money, but I'd rather give it to them while I'm living. But then if you get too generous, then you jeopardize the parents' retirement plan. And so that's another thing we coach them through is, okay, what's reasonable in giving to my children and grandchildren while I'm still dependent on this pot of investments to also take care of me, because I never want my children to have to, take care of me. I want to be independent, right? And so again, one size fits one. Some say, as your parents were telling you, you're just, hey, if there's anything left, good, but don't expect it, you know. But we have other clients that say, look, I definitely want to leave, a nice inheritance, a nice nest egg for my family.
I think it's the quote from, I think it was Warren Buffett, give your kids enough that they can do something, but not so much that they don't have to do anything.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Mark?
Well, I was just saying it kind of goes back to the do-it-yourself investor or the guy trying to do it himself that you were talking about earlier. There's a lot of new things being presented in Congress right now that's going to change the laws, whether it be taxes or structurally on how you inherit that money and what happens to that money when you inherit it. And just having somebody that's up to date and being able to structure it in such a way that you could double your kid's inheritance just by having it structured correctly. And, there's a lot of things being changed, and it's only going to continue to change between now and when you pass away. So far, nothing has been retroactive as far as these proposals that are coming out in Congress, but having somebody and getting someone early that can structure your life, whether this through trust, Roth IRAs, Roth conversions, et cetera, to make sure that we're going to maximize what we give to our kids versus just giving it to the government.
I remember hearing an awful story, but it's a lesson learned, and that is in 2006 or something like that, a very wealthy man gave each of his adult children like $1 million apiece, and maybe it was even more. And 2008 happened, and he had to go to his kids and ask for it back. And they said, sorry, it's gone. Anyway, all right, this has been fantastic. How can people find you? Jamey?
Well, we have a website, sandiferwealth.com, and they can go on that site and learn a little bit more about our business, and they can also request information. Again, we are our office is at 3615 Old Shell Road, has been for many years, and we would love to visit with anyone that's interested in finding more about working with a certified financial planner. Feel free to give us a ring.
Jamey Sandifer, Marc Salyers, Sandifer Wealth Management, here in Mobile, Old Shell Road, some of the local guys, friends of mine. I can vouch for them if it means anything to you. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Cam.
Thanks, Cam.
We'll be back after this break with final comments. You're listening to What's Working.
At Roy Lewis Construction, we're in the business of adding value. Whether it's working with you to meet your unique business needs or making investments in our community in lasting ways, providing unparalleled value and quality in every commercial construction project. When planning your next commercial project, reach out to Roy Lewis Construction. We'll pair you with a designer that best suits your project needs and work with that designer to balance the best architectural outcome with the best budget outcome. Find us online at roylewisconstruction.com, building legacies one relationship at a time.
Hey, this is David Lane with Coast Diagnostics, and when I'm not doing COVID testing, I'm listening to What's Working with Cam Marston. Now back to the show.
Thanks to Jamey. Thanks to Marc for being a part of the show. Both Jamey and Marc will be a part of the Small Business Succession Planning Workshop to be held at the Community Foundation of South Alabama on November the 4th. If you'd like an invitation to that, email me, Cam, C-A-M, at cammarston.com. I'll send you the link to RSVP. Check us out on social media, everybody. We'd love to see you there. The show is produced by John Thompson. We'll have another show next week. Have a good week.